What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Crush City Territory. I'm Chandler Rome, joined by Tyler Stafford, and happy offseason. Earlier than perhaps any of you can ever remember an offseason occurring for the Houston Astros, who ended their 8 consecutive seasons of playing postseason baseball on Saturday night in Anaheim in a very odd setting. CJ Kafis of the Cleveland Guardians got hit by a pitch with the bases loaded to eliminate the Astros. And then I don't want to speculate on how it trickled out to the dugout, but I did have my binoculars on. We all did. We had our binoculars on the dugout right like about 30 seconds after the hit by pitch, and I saw Carlos Correa come up from a bunch of guys were on the railing. I saw Carlos Correa come up onto the railing and tell the coaches something. I presume he told them that Cleveland had won the game. A lot of guys then got off of the railing, kind of sat on the bench. You could tell it was a visceral deflation of the dugout. And then Joe Espada in turn pulled Jose Altuve, Isaac Paredes, and Carlos Correa from the game. And that was the end, effectively, of the 2025 Astros season. They did play Saturday and Sunday, won both games to finish a season that, Tyler, I'm still struggling with how to to talk about this season. I kept writing. I used the word star-crossed probably more than I ever have in my career, just describing this season, just given everything that happened to this team injury-wise. I used the word snake bit a little bit because it just seemed like every time something was going right for them, another injury happened or another just awful instance happened. But I think it'd be misguided to blame this entire season on injuries. Don't get me wrong. Injuries derailed this team to a point that few other major league teams have ever had to endure. We talked about it a little bit on here. I think both Baseball Prospectus and Fangraphs did an accumulation of how much potential WAR was lost to injuries this season, and the Astros were atop both lists. If you believe Fangraphs' study said the Astros lost about 17.6 potential WAR on the injured list. There is no denying that injuries just crippled this team. But I think to say that this was just an injury-plagued season and a one-off is a little bit misguided. But Tyler, how will you remember the 2025 Astros?
So I would agree with you if they had missed the playoffs by 9 games. If they had just cratered to a point, if they weren't even a 500 baseball team or whatever, I think you could look at that and say, okay, yeah, injuries are a part of it, but that's not everything. Like every team is hurt, like the Astros are not special in that they had players get injured. They are special in the number of players that they got injured and the core of the team that was injured for most of the year. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that they tied 2 other teams to make the playoffs. They just didn't have the tiebreaker over them. They missed the playoffs by a win.
Yes,
essentially. And so I think it is certainly fair to say injuries played a large role in that. I mean, you could easily say at any point in the A's or Angels series of the last week, if Yordan Alvarez is playing, if they might win one of those games and be in the playoffs, and then you just go like, okay, we'll see what happens from there. So I think it is a fair looking back at the season to say like injuries played a humongous role in this. Now they, had a lot of other issues as well. That is certainly the case. But yeah, I think when you look back at this season, injuries are going to be the first thing that you think of when you think of this season. I'd like to read you off real quick on Baseball Reference. You can sort by innings played on the team page here. I'd like to read off the 5 Astros who played the most innings in the field for them this year. It was Christian Walker, far and away the most, Cam Smith, Jeremy Pena, Yainer Diaz, Mauricio Dubon. 2 of those guys you would have been okay with. thinking like, okay, those Diaz and Walker, that was another issue of this year, is that two of the guys that didn't get hurt and that you were relying on just weren't good. But when Cam Smith, and listen, as the number one Cam Smith supporter, it's even difficult for me to say, when Cam Smith is the guy that played the second most innings on your team this year, something happened over the course of the season. I mean, Mauricio Dubon again was above even Altuve, but it's there was a lot that happened this year, and so I mean, yeah, when you look back at this year, I think even before the season, everyone would have agreed this is not anywhere near the caliber of the team that you would have expected going, over the last 10 years. Like, this is clearly the worst of the last 10 years of Astros teams going into this season. And I think even before the year, we said like 86, 87 wins. Like, that's where they ended up. So in a way, you could say like the other guys maybe even overperformed because they did have so many injuries from the guys that they were expecting to perform and they didn't. So maybe they were even a little bit better than you would have expected, given that they had so many injuries. But I mean, more or less, this is where you would have thought the Astros would have ended up before the season. And now the issue is this was kind of your last shot of, you still got Fromber, you've got, obviously you're going to have Altuve for a while now, but this was, everyone knew this was coming to the downside of a golden era. And I think it is fair to say that even if the Astros go back to the playoffs next year, the golden era will be defined as ending this season, no matter what happens next year.
Yeah, I wanted to save maybe like where the franchise is and where the organization is for the next segment, because I think we're not very organized on this show, in case you guys haven't noticed after 100 and something episodes. We did want to kind of do it as talk about the 2025 Astros and then talk about maybe the full franchise, like where this leaves them in their life cycle.
To be fair, you literally told me that before we started recording and I went off on my own rant. So I don't know that it's organization as much as I just ignored you.
I mean, it's both. You listed off all those guys that played all those things. That does not count Jose Altuve, who DH'd for a substantial amount of time this year, which is probably what he needed to do, just given his age. But also, when you're playing a 35-year-old player 155 games in a season, I don't care if he's just DHing. That's probably not the recipe to go. I had this statistic in a story I wrote on Sunday after they were eliminated on Saturday, that the Astros had 8 players on their season opening payroll that made more than $10 million. And let me remember them off the top of my head. It was Jose Altuve, Christian Walker, Framber Valdez, Rafael Montero, shout out. He's going to the playoffs. How about that? Good for Rafael Montero.
Is he? Where is he now?
He's with the Detroit Tigers, baby.
That's right.
Good for him. He's going to the playoffs. Josh Hader, Lance McCullers Jr., Jordan Alvarez, and Christian Javier. So
where's Jose Abreu?
He counts too, but I didn't put him in this exercise. Montero actually did, throw a pitch for this team this year, so he does kind of count. Abreu made $19.5 million to sit in Miami somewhere. Those 8 guys that I just listed, they combined for 6.6 WAR, according to Baseball Reference. Framber Valdez was responsible for 3.9 of that, and I don't need to tell you how Framber Valdez's last 2 months went. That is one issue, that the guys that they paid handsomely to perform and the guys that just by their salary, and that's not how this works all the time. It's not just you get paid a lot of money and automatically you have to carry the team. Like, guys come out of nowhere. You can have rookies come up and do well. Jeremy Pena didn't make $10 million this year, but he was the best player on the team. But when you have that much money invested in all of those guys, and not all of it was sheer lack of production. Jordan Alvarez was one of those guys. He played 48 games all year. Lance McCullers was one of those guys, had 4 stints on the injured list. Christian Javier was one of those guys, was recovering from Tommy John for the first half of the year, didn't get back until July. But when you have that much money and you're not the Mets, you're not the Yankees, you're not the Dodgers, like
the famous playoff making Mets.
Well, yeah. But you're not those teams to where money is no issue. Like we've talked about this ad nauseum. Jim Crane spends money. It is factually inaccurate to say that he does not spend money. However, he's not going to go spend money like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, like these teams that are giving out $700 million deals. So when you are constrained like that, it puts a lot of pressure on the guys that you do choose to spend a lot of money on your payroll. They've got to perform and they've got to produce. And if they don't, that trickles down to the depth of your organization. That trickles down to the pre-ARB guys and the guys in ARB. Some of them performed very well. Hunter Brown's going to finish in the top 3 or 4 of Cy Young voting, and he is about to enter his first year of arbitration eligibility. He made the league minimum this year. Jeremy Pena just finished his first year of arbitration eligibility. He is going to appear on some AL MVP ballots. They helped, but you saw that there was just not enough production from the complementary pieces on the team just to be able to support what they didn't get from the high-priced premium talent. And I think that really, really sunk them. That really hurt, and it really started to call into question a little bit just their lack of organizational depth. And I think another thing that, as we've been talking about the trade deadline and we were talking about, we were right to honestly say that the trade deadline did not age well. And that's no secret.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about it another way this weekend. According to outside projections and according to outside lists and things, the Astros' 2 best prospects are a left-handed hitting outfielder named Jacob Melton and a second baseman named Bryce Matthews. They are their 2 best position player prospects. Dana Brown, at the trade deadline, went and acquired a left-handed hitting outfielder from the Miami Marlins and Ramon Urias from the Orioles, who came here and played primarily second base before they stopped playing him late in the season. The fact, and I'm not putting this on Bryce Matthews and Jacob Melton, but the fact that those 2 guys are considered the 2 best prospects in the organization, and you had to go acquire their doppelgangers from other teams and they didn't give up a ton of prospect capital, but they gave up stuff to get them. And those guys have multiple years of team control left. What does that say about maybe the state of everything behind the major league team? To me, it does not speak well. And it all comes back to when you've got those highly paid guys, like we just talked about, that did not perform or were injured or were some combination of both, you need your organizational depth to shine through. And I think, if anything, what this season showed is that their organizational depth from top to bottom is not where it needs to be to sustain what happened this season.
Yeah, correct. I mean, there's nobody in the system that you're looking at and going, oh, you can build around this guy, which is, what the Astros have done for the last 10 years. You bring up Correa, you bring up Springer, you bring up Bregman, Tucker, you have these guys that are in the farm system, and you're just waiting for the next wave of guys to come up and sustain the success that you're in. And yeah, the Astros don't have that right now. Both of those guys may be good major league players. They might have 1 or 2 really good years at some point. That's certainly a possibility, but none of them are in the same stratosphere as those 4 guys that I just mentioned. They are not franchise altering players, or at the very least, they have not shown anything resembling that to this point, as evidenced by the fact that Zach Cole came up and was
the best player on the team
better.
last
Yeah,
2 weeks.
Finished with a higher WAR than Christian Walker. Fun fact.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
So, yeah. Now, granted, game 162, Bryce Matthews had a home run, so leaving on a good note, coming back next season for that. But yeah, I mean the Astros just don't have that next wave of talent coming, and I think they know that, and I think every other team knows that as well, which is why, which is why I think they went out and got guys like Jesus Sanchez this season, because I think they correctly identified by the time Melton and Matthews are hopefully good core tenants of a team, the team that you have now is going to be aged out. So like this might be your last real shot. So go and get some pieces here. And yeah, I mean, I think as we talked about, the Tucker trade tried to address that, realizing that Tucker was not going to re-sign. This was your chance to get some good pieces here. At some point, we could certainly, you know, open up a wound of looking at Fromber's trade value at the deadline. Again, that's all in hindsight. And in the moment, there was no scenario where the Astros were trading him, but he certainly would have garnered a lot to help the farm system moving forward. They didn't do that. I still think that was 100% the correct decision. I mean, imagine even as bad as Fromber looked for the last 2 months, if they were starting a wild card series, this weekend, and it was Hunter Brown and Jason Alexander maybe as your game 2 start, I don't think you would have been too excited about that either. So yeah, I mean, they just don't have that next wave coming up. I'm writing the comments for the Baseball Prospectus Annual this year, and yeah, there's not a lot down there to get too excited about.
Are you mentioned it a little bit earlier? Is it more encouraging or is it more frustrating that everything we just talked about, what the 2025 team went through, all the injuries, all the adversity, that they still won 87 games, and like they still, if they beat the Tigers once, like if you
They
don't
beat the
want
Rockies once.
or yeah, but like
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking like something more visceral, like the Hunter Brown Tarek Skubal duel in Comerica Park in August when Caleb Ort walked in the winning run in the 10th inning. Like if they find a way to win that game, they're in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like let me think. Remember the game in Chicago? It was McCullers' return that like got banged after 6 innings because it was raining. Like if they finish those 3 innings against one of the worst teams in baseball, you think they may find a way to come back and win that game. Like
they don't get swept by the Guardians after the
right.
Dodgers series, in any of those.
Right. Like there's so many different, just like when you lose by a game, and Christian Walker and actually Lance McCullers said this today after the game. It really does put a whole new meaning on it. I'm guilty of this too. I think there's some people in baseball, like in clubhouses, that are guilty of this too. Like when you lose a game in May or when you lose a game in June, you're just like, oh, like who cares? Like, oh well, like we didn't have a reliever today. Like we weren't gonna burn up the bullpen today just to try to win this game. Those games matter. Those games can come back to bite you. And the 2025 Astros got a sobering look at that. That you're looking at one random win in April or May. You can go find whatever game you think adequately addresses it, but one win somewhere else, and we're having a different conversation right now. But do we feel any different? Like if this team did somehow sneak in, and I'm on a plane to Cleveland or Detroit right now, like, do we feel any different about how this season went?
Yeah, 100%. If you make the playoffs, the season was a success. I mean, that's how baseball works. It's very hard to make the playoffs. Again, the Mets spent $1 billion and choked their way out of the playoffs. Like making the playoffs is really hard. The Astros were very close to it. I think it does speak to some sauce in the organization that they were able to sustain these injuries, that they, despite not having top level talent, do seem to have just a carousel of faceless guys who are able to just come up and provide something. I think that speaks to the player development that is in the system and their ability to get the most out of. I mean, again, Hunter Brown's a 5th round draft pick. Like, they are able to squeeze the most out of the talent that they do have. But yeah, I mean, if they're in the playoffs, it's a successful season. Like, yeah, you're probably not going to make it very far in the playoffs, but you made the playoffs and you take your shot, because as we said, even right now, I still think the Astros have a chance in a 5-game series against any of the teams in the AL playoffs. Like, they're not, like we said, they didn't win 72 games this year. They were still a good baseball team. They were right there. And so, yeah, it's frustrating that they didn't make it. But I mean, as we saw for the last 3 months, like, this is not anywhere near the caliber of team that they have had recently. But that caliber of team doesn't exist, and I don't think will exist in the modern way baseball is done. I don't think that you will see a run like you saw with the Astros from 2017 to 2023. Like, I don't think that 6-year run will be touched for a very long time in baseball, just because of how difficult it is to win that much, be in a division that bad, hit on that many top end players, sign the right guy. Like, that is very, very difficult to do. And so holding them to that standard is obviously unrealistic. No other team can do that. And the Astros weren't going to be able to sustain that forever. That's not a failure of the organization. And if anything, like I said, winning 87 games this year after losing Bregman, Tucker, basically playing a whole year without Jordan, like, it's impressive that they were still the 7th best team in the American League, despite playing with essentially Jose Altuve. Jeremy Pena had a great year. Hunter Brown had a great year. But outside of that, like, it's just a bunch of dudes, like, just guys out there. And it's impressive that they made it as far as they did. It doesn't make it any less annoying that they're not playing in October. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I Googled the other day, what do you do in Houston in October? I think I've told this before, but my wife and I got married in September of 2015. So outside of 2016, this is the first year we've moved 3 times. We've had 3 kids, and this is like the first year that there's not Astros baseball in October. And I think I've told you too, but my groom's cake for my September 2015 wedding said 2017 World Series champion on it. It was an Astros cake, and I had to clarify that several times with the cake maker of, yes, I do mean 2017. And so that was cool. But yeah, I mean, it's been a decade of the Astros being one of, if not the best teams in baseball. Every single year, it was a given that was going to happen. And that's just not sustainable. I mean, the Yankees haven't won a World Series in almost 30 years. Like, it is really, really hard to do what the Astros just did.
And we'll talk about whether this does signal the end of that run right after this message from DraftKings. If I can find the ad. Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. This season, play your player instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call, ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
So I asked it before the break. Where is the franchise? Because we just talked about this team, right? And the injuries and the underperformance from guys that they needed to perform well, and kind of you're starting to see. I don't want to say cracks in the foundation. I don't think that's completely accurate, but you're starting to see. And we did the math, but we didn't do the math. I found a site that did the math for us. We did the math before the show. The Astros' average age of their position players this season was 28.9 years old. That is the 5th oldest lineup in baseball. The sixth, excuse me. The 5 older ones are the Rangers, the Pirates, the Padres, the Phillies, and the Dodgers. The pitching is right at league average. They're an average of about 29.2 years old, which is right at league average. This is a core that is aging. Jose Altuve is not getting any younger. Carlos Correa now in the fold is about to turn 32. Christian Walker will turn 35 in March. This is they are getting older, and as we talked about, there are no real youngsters in the pipeline that you look at and it's like, we can bring the young kids up and kind of phase these guys out. Not that they can phase some of these older guys out, just given the contracts they're on and things of that nature. So where is it? Where is the franchise now? Is the golden era? I think we've kind of danced around it, but I think from now on, when people do talk about the golden era, it will have ended in 2024. But that's not to say that they're going to tear it down and rebuild. That's not to. I don't think Jim Crane would ever do that as long as he is in control of things. But where are they? Where is this franchise now after this season?
The franchise is in whatever is currently hurting Jordan and the right arm of Hunter Brown. The Astros will go as far as those two guys can carry them next year. Obviously, if Pena can come back and recreate that success, they still have a runway of a couple of years before they just, fall off the tracks. Like, obviously, if in the next 5 years they don't have any prospect come up and, be able to replace any of these guys, they're going to be in a lot of trouble, but so would literally every baseball team. If you just said you don't have any new guys for the next 5 years and you just watch this team age, if Jordan plays a full season and has a 5-win season, if Hunter Brown can continue the success next year, if Jeremy Pena can, repeat the success, if Jake Myers can be this good over a whole season, the Astros still will very easily be in the conversation for the division and certainly a playoff spot next year, and even, well, theoretically, if there's a baseball season the year after, but certainly next year, they will be fine. But yeah, they're going to have to find young talent, and they don't have it currently, but nobody thought Jeremy Pena was going to be this good either. Like those things happen, and the Astros have been able to make it happen. And I don't think you're at the point now where you can definitively say, like, they don't have the ability to do that again. I mean, again, we've talked about it a ton, like Hunter Brown, Fromber, Christian Javier, Renell Blanc, like all of these guys came out of nowhere, were unheralded prospects for the most part, and have become, all-stars. Like that is not something to just throw away. And it's not something that you would assume the Astros have lost the ability to do. But there is pressure on them to do it quickly. Because then you're going to run into the risk of thank goodness you weren't around for this, but the like 2007, 2008 Astros teams that were all just 35 years old and the remnants of the last good era of the Astros team, they just didn't have anybody else come up after that 2005 World Series appearance. They certainly run the risk of very quickly this getting ugly if they can't find young talent to supplement the core that they do have locked in for the next 4 or 5 years. But they're not there yet. I don't think this is a team that you look at, like you said, this is nowhere near a conversation where you say, like, should they blow it up and start over or whatever. I mean, there's
No, they just won 87 games and finished like one game away from going to the playoffs with a historic amount of injuries. Like,
correct.
this is not the time to blow it up. But they're on the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Like, you have 2 more years of Jeremy Pena under arbitration. Like, he there's 2 more years before he's going to free agency, and let me tell you, he's going to free agency. He hired Scott Boras as his agent. That is never usually a sign that he's going to sign an extension. He's going to free agency. Hunter Brown's got 3 more years. And then, with Hunter, it's different. He's a pitcher. He can impact a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, you're seeing what Tarek Skubal does for the Tigers. Like, if he keeps this up, like, he can have a Skubal-like effect, but he only pitches every 5 days. Like, he's not an everyday position player. I think the number one priority, they've got to fix Cam Smith. I don't know if fix is probably a strong word, but they need him to be what he was in spring training. And then for a little bit of, up until maybe June 30th, like, they need more of that. I'm not saying he needs to go win the MVP. That would be advantageous for the Astros if he did that. But they need him to embody that aircraft carrier persona that Dana Brown bestowed on him. Like, they need him to be that guy. And I'm not saying that one thing is going to turn it around, but that'll buy them some time, because, player development is not something that just happens overnight. Like, you don't just drop a prospect in the big league camp next year and just out of nowhere they're going to be carrying the franchise. You mentioned
Zach Cole.
I mean, maybe, but okay. So here's the other thing, and it gets a little bit conflated when we start talking, when fans start talking about these guys that come up. Zach Cole is 25 years old.
Yeah, he's old.
Jacob Melton is also 25 years old. Like, it's like Cam Smith. It's different with Cam Smith. Like, Cam Smith is 22 years old. He is for lack of a better word, he's a child. Like, in baseball terms, he is a child. So he has more maturing to do. He is very much like can be molded and improve and develop. Bryce Matthews is 23. He, again, there's a little more time for Bryce Matthews, but like, we're talking, like, everyone's like, they see Zach Cole do what he did last 2 weeks and say, oh, like, he's the tent pole. He's the future of the front. Like, guys, he is 25 years old and literally came out of nowhere and was in AA 3 weeks ago and just got on an unreal heater. For those waiting for, and again, I don't want this. I hate that this is like, we're saying all these prospects' names that like literally had nothing to do with this season, but like, it's just the symptom of where they are as a franchise. Like, they have got to, and I don't know if that is having some more difficult trades this offseason. Like, I don't know if it's Dana's got to go out and find prospects elsewhere to get them in. And maybe it's not prospects. Maybe you go find some 0 to 3 guys on other teams and you do a big leaguer for big leaguer swap where you just get younger. You get younger, you get a little more energy, a little more athleticism. That's what they want. That was the whole, we talked about that ad nauseum in spring training, right? When we were debating whether Cam Smith should make the team or not. It was one of these, he's going to bring that energy and that fire and that athleticism that just hasn't been there for a while. Maybe it's that, but this is not something that they're going to snap their fingers and next year we're going to walk into the clubhouse in West Palm Beach and there's going to be 4 21-year-olds like raring to go to be the next core of the Astros. Like,
correct.
There's some guys that have to take steps forward. There's going to be some decisions that have to be made this offseason too. And, looking at where they are and the decisions they'll have to make, you know, they've got a glut of infielders. With Carlos Correa now playing third base, Isaac Paredes doesn't have anywhere to play. I think Isaac Paredes won over, not that he needed to win anybody over. Like what he did the last 2 weeks of the season is nothing short of like remarkable. Playing clearly like just in pain. Jose Altuve too. Jose Altuve's foot is messed up. Like I'm not going to speculate whether he's going to need an offseason procedure or not, but it would not surprise me at all if he's got to do something to his foot in the offseason. So those two guys deserve a lot of credit for playing through it. But anyway, you know, Isaac Paredes is nowhere to play next year, and Christian Walker's at first base. Like, you know, the convenient narrative says, oh, trade Christian Walker. Like, you can just slide Isaac Paredes at first base and you got it. But would you get more for Isaac Paredes? Like, could you get something that would impact like your long-term view of the franchise more for Isaac Paredes? Like, these are the decisions they're going to have to make. Like, do they entertain trading Jeremy Pena? Like, I know he's got 2 years left and Tucker only had one, but you opened up Pandora's box last year when you traded Kyle Tucker. You have now said that if we don't think we can re-sign this guy, then we need to trade to supplement our farm system and to get our farm system better. And I wonder if they consider that. I don't think that happens, but it's going to create this offseason some very interesting decisions, because the one thing that, and again, I wasn't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, on those 06, 07, 08 teams, where, you know, the core was aging and there wasn't much in the farm. What you start doing at that point is you just start trying to throw money at the problem. You start trying to throw money, and you have seen that this team has not distinguished itself in the way it spends its money. They spend money, like they do spend money, but the players that they have chosen to invest in, especially from outside the organization, it has not gone well. And was it like that in 06 and 07 where they just were throwing money at the problem and just hoping to plug the holes with guys that they got in free agency? And, you know, it didn't turn out. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And they kept trying to just get back, you know, so it was like, oh, well, you know, trade whoever, you know, you'll mortgage the future to trade. And the Astros of the current era will not do that. I mean, we saw it this year that the Astros could have easily mortgaged the future to try to get some. I mean, you know, like we said, you never know who's available, but the Astros certainly could have traded any top prospect this year to try to make it 2 games further. And you could argue maybe that would have been nice to get 2 more wins this season, but they did not do anything to that effect. But yeah, I mean, in those years right after, and again, like they were fine. Like the 2008 Astros won 86 games. They finished third in the NL Central, but you know, they were led by 39-year-old Brad Ausmus, 32-year-old Berkman. Jeff Blum was on that team at 35. You know, they had a lot of older guys, and and yeah, I mean, I don't think the way that the Astros are run under Jim Crane that you will see the desperation to mortgage the future to try to win one more year. I think Crane correctly identifies that just making it every year and having a competitive team is better than trying to go all in 1 year and hope for the best. And we've seen that, you know, again, like the 2019 Astros are probably one of the best teams of all time. They didn't win, but the 2023 team did, which was objectively not as good as that team. You just have to get in and see what happens. And again, they were 1 win away this year from getting in and seeing what happens. But yeah, I mean, the state of the franchise, again, is not dire by any means, but it's without things going well in the next 2 years, it gets to that dire point. And so, to your point, they need to hit on free agents. They have not done that. They have not done well at signing big name free agents. You know, they've gotten some some depth guys that have been helpful for them. Made some great waiver claims. Most of the bullpen this year were just scrap heap guys that performed really well. But you can see that just one bad free agent signing can really alter your franchise. Like now you're in a position, like you said, in the offseason where you have to entertain, should you trade Isak Paredes, because now you've got Correa and Christian Walker locked up on big contracts. And even though Paredes is clearly better, what are you going to do? You've already paid Christian Walker all this money.
And you're not offloading the whole contract. He did not he was better in the second half, but there's no team that's going to take on all $40 million of that deal.
No. I mean, that's certainly not going to happen. I did want to bring up on the Zach Cole discussion, just for context. So it'll technically be his age 25 season next year, but he'll turn 26 in September. Carlos Correa's last season with the Astros, he was 26. So just to kind of give you an idea of where he's at prospect age wise, that should give you a clue of where he's at.
Yeah. It's
no offense. I mean, great end of the year. Awesome. Glad he's doing it. To your point, for fans who are looking at this as like the next guy, like Correa was already signing free agent contracts at that point. Now he was also a freak who came up super young and was very good immediately. That's not normal. But yeah, the Astros don't have a 20-year-old in their system that you're circling as like, as soon as he's ready, this is the guy that's going to come up. Maybe they find one next year. It happens every year that guys just get helium, and they just turn into these great players all of a sudden, and something clicks, and they're able to find success. And we saw it all throughout the year this year as well. I mean, AJ Blueball, like, he was a top-ish prospect, but he was nowhere near the top prospect in the Astros system, and he was phenomenal for the Astros. So, those things can happen, and it will happen next year. There will be guys that we've never heard of, and we will not talk about until a week before they're called up, and they'll come up and perform way better than anyone would have expected. That happens every year. But it's tough to rely on that happening every year and to build your team around hoping that will happen. It's nice to have the cornerstone guys that you can really hang your hat on them being great players.
I wonder who'll be managing the next year in that group of players. We'll talk about whether there will be a new face managing that team right after another message from our friends at Foul Territory.
FT Fam, Superpower believes that every human has 100-year potential, and they're going to help you get there. I like the sweatshirt, Eric Kratz, and I also love the way that Superpower takes care of its members.
Yeah. You go get your lab test, you become the best you. You be a member of this group, and your test will come back. It's unlocking things that you didn't know about yourself. This is stuff that players used all the time. You can do it now too.
Exactly, Kratz. How many of you have gone to a doctor's appointment? You get the classic, oh, you're fine, or just drink more water. No real data, no real game plan. With one simple blood draw with Superpower and over 100 biomarkers, that is way more than what you'd usually get, and it unlocks so much more about your own body. Head to superpower.com to learn more and lock in the special $199 price while it lasts. After you sign up, they'll ask you how you heard about them. Please make sure to mention the FT podcast to support the show. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower.
Do you think Jim Crane has offered Justin Verlander a contract yet?
Oh, I would never bet on baseball, but if I could bet on anything, I'd bet that. I'd bet hard on that.
That would have been nice to have had over the last couple months. Is it good for him? That's so exciting.
They have two starters in their 2026 rotation.
I hope Verlander pitches until 2035. I hope he just does this forever. Good for him. But that's a future Astro if I've ever seen one.
not going to say it's a lock, but that will be the least surprising news in the world when Ben Verlander one day in December tweets out that Justin Verlander's a member of the Astros again.
Why wait? Season's over. Give him a contract now. What are we doing?
He has to wait. He's not a free agent officially until 5 days after the World Series. So, he's got to be patient.
But you can kind of wink at one now if you want.
I'm sure. I would not be stunned if that has happened already. Jim Crane has other pressing matters to attend to. Maybe we buried the lead here because I think this is something that people that are listening to this now will want to have a lot of thoughts about. Joe Espada's job status has recently become in question. I think it's fair to say that it's certainly not a slam dunk that he is back in 2026. The three beat writers, myself, Brian McTaggart, and Matt Kawahara, talked to Dana Brown today in Anaheim before the game. I asked him just straight up twice, will Joe Espada be your manager next year? There was no yes given. There also wasn't a no given. There was no definitive answer. All Dana would say was that Joe is under contract next year. So he is under contract. He praised him for, as Dana put it, doing a good job and pushing all the right buttons. Dana made it a point numerous times to say that injuries were the reason that the Astros did not make the postseason. He certainly did not want to blame this on Joe Espada. And I think any rational person that watched this team this year, you cannot blame them not making
he was the manager of the year in July. Like unequivocally the best manager in baseball in July. It would be silly to blame everything on him.
But when you get the big chair, we don't know what his paycheck is, but I assume it's bigger than mine. When you get the big paycheck, when you get the big chair, and when things don't go well, it falls back on you. This is part of the title. This is part of having the title. I think anyone right now, as we're doing this on Sunday night at 8:52 p.m. Central Time, I think if anyone right now tells you they know definitively what's going to happen, they're out of their mind. I think there's one person that knows, and it's Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros. I think this is his decision. I think, the way Dana addressed the questions today, he certainly talked like someone that was certainly not going to blame Joe for this, but he also talked like someone that knew that he had to go get the okay first, that they had to get back to Houston on late Sunday night, early Monday morning. I don't know when they're going to meet. For what it's worth, the Astros have announced that this is from the Astros, that they announced that Dana Brown and Joe Espada will meet with the media on Tuesday. That is normal standard operating procedure after the season. It's called a postmortem. So the Astros have said that both of those guys will be available on Tuesday. I don't think that means much. I think that was just something that the media members could put in their calendar to set aside some time for when it's going to happen. I don't know. If I knew, I'd tell you. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. What I'm about to say is my opinion. I want to make that very clear. I watched over 130 games this team played this year. I watched from afar about 151 of the 162. I did not think this team was poorly managed. When I watched this team, I did not think this was a poorly managed team on the field. Joe's not perfect. His bullpen management, not just maybe on like in-game bullpen management. The way he warms up his relievers, there's a lot of double barrel action in his bullpen. He gets his relievers up a lot. To me, it's different than what I've seen. Like, it's not what AJ Hinch did. It's not what Dusty Baker did. It's not what I've seen other managers do. So it's just different. He does it a little bit different. I'm not sitting here saying Joe's perfect. I also think we as fans and reporters, we really don't know what a manager does, because the most important part for a baseball manager is inside the clubhouse, where we don't even see what – I'm in there an hour a day, and I don't see half of what goes on in there. behind closed doors, that is the mark of a manager is keeping the thing together when blank is hitting the fan. And I think before these last couple weeks in September, Joe did an admirable job of keeping this thing together because, and even look back to last year when they started 12-24 and everyone was healthy. The fact that he kept that together in his first year as a manager speaks volumes to what he's able to do. What that will mean going forward, I do not know. But Tyler, I struggle if it happens that, Joe does not manage the team next year for whatever reason. I'd find it hard to believe that it would be anything but they needed a fall guy. They needed a scapegoat for a team that ended effectively a golden era. And when you're the manager, it kind of falls back on you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there will certainly be some changes.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
There will
for
be
sure.
Changes. There will be changes. Don't misunderstand me. Joe may come back next year, but there will be changes. Don't misunderstand that.
I agree with you that it's very difficult to judge a manager because so much of their job is how they handle the clubhouse. My one point to that would be the Astros had a very public clubhouse issue arise a month ago with Fromber, and the fact that did not blow up and that the team didn't quit and that there wasn't a bunch of leaks coming out, for the next month of infighting and all this, I think that speaks to doing a good job managing a clubhouse. There are not a lot of people that I think would be able to navigate that situation as well as it was handled. I have no idea how much of that you can give credit to Espada, how much of it is just the internal strength. I don't know, but I think it is fair to point out that that is a very clear landmine for a manager, and I thought that he navigated it really well with an impending free agent pitcher who could have just quit on the team and that could have turned ugly really fast. And the fact that it didn't, I think, at least speaks to competency from him and being able to navigate that situation. Now, again, when you lose out after having 95% playoff odds, all of those things are true. But at the same time, if the Astros won one more game and the Tigers have the most embarrassing collapse in baseball history and miss the playoffs, do you think AJ Hinch is a worse manager than you did when the year started? No, that's still a good, so it's difficult to even assign blame for a season based on that. Because again, the AJ Hinch missed being the talk of baseball by one game. And I don't think that that's his fault. I think he's a very good manager. I think everybody else agrees with that. But that doesn't change that if you blow a 15.5 game lead like they did and miss the playoffs entirely, you're going to be blamed for that. And I don't think that that's necessarily true or fair. And I think the same is true of Espada. You're just kind of dealt the cards that you have, and that's what happened this year. But I think the Fromber situation is more indicative of how you are as a manager than basically anything that plays out on the field.
I agree with that. I also agree with how the Jose Abreu situation was handled last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was done with tact and in a way that, especially for a first-year manager at the time, he had been on the job for 2 months when it really, really started to spiral. He was able to do two things simultaneously. He was able to not bury the guy. He was able to, the one thing about a manager is they talk a lot. They talk a lot into cameras a lot about these guys. And it is, believe me, as someone that has been podcasting now for a while, it's really hard to choose your words carefully when you talk as much as, I do and you do, Tyler, into this microphone when you know a lot of people are going to listen, it's got to be really hard for Joe to and any manager to do that when you understanding you got 28 guys in the clubhouse plus 9 coaches plus the GM plus the owner that are going to be listening to everything you say. He did a very good job in that situation of not burying the guy publicly, of saying we want to stand behind him, like he's working hard. And I know fans hate to hear that stuff. I know they hate to hear like we think he's coming out of it, like we're going to give him some time, we believe in him. I get it, but that's part of the job. But you know what he also did? He also kept moving him down the lineup. He also kept sitting him. He also kept, he removed him as an everyday player essentially, while he was still going out and portraying him in a good light publicly when everyone around him knew that this was not going well. So I think that's another feather in his cap too, that he handled that so well. Contrary to what fans and my mentions and on the comments of my stories think, like a poorly managed team is not a team that like goes on a losing streak. Like losing streaks happen across the sport. Like Dave Roberts is considered one of the better managers in recent memory, and the Dodgers go on losing streaks all the time. AJ Hinch, if you polled 100 people in baseball, I would bet 70 of them would say AJ Hinch right now is the best active manager in baseball. Mm-hmm. And his team just blew a 15 and a half game division lead to a Guardians team that is awful. That is not a good team. It is Jose Ramirez and no one else. That team is not good, but they got on a heater and they ran down the Tigers. That the worst collapse is not hyperbole. The worst collapse in baseball history. That doesn't mean they're poorly managed. Just because the Astros did not make the playoffs this season, that doesn't mean they're poorly managed. When I watched this team play, I did not see a poorly managed team. I did not see a team kicking the ball around. I did not see a team that lacked fundamentals. Were there times when there were fundamental lapses? Sure. But if you watch another team for 150, 160 games, there's going to be fundamental lapses every now and then. What I did see in Sacramento, I did see, guys busting it down the line to try to beat out double play balls in a series that they knew the season was slipping through their hands. They're still out there busting it down the line. I did see guys diving for effort was never an issue. So from an on-field perspective, I can't rationalize moving on from Joe Espada just because from what I saw from an on-field perspective, I did not see a poorly managed team. I do not think this team missed the playoffs because they had a bad manager. But at the end of the day, it's Jim Crane. Guy fired a GM after he won a World Series. Like he's unpredictable. He is an aggressive owner. He is a guy that expects a lot out of people. And this was the sort of ending to a season that is not going to sit well with him. And I don't know what to expect. I just said he's unpredictable. I have no idea what to. It would not surprise me either way. But just as I viewed it, I do not think the team had a managerial problem. But that it doesn't really matter what I think.
He's not calling to ask you.
No. I'm going to put in a request to see if he'll come on the pod.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm sure they'll get right back to me on that one.
Mm-hmm.
We as we alluded to, I do think some changes are coming. Dana Brown, as part of that interview today, Dana Brown, let me get the direct quote so I don't misquote him. That would be bad on my part. Dana Brown did say that they are going to do a quote complete look at all of our operations this offseason.
That's good. I would do that too.
Yeah, he brought up unprompted that he was mad about the injuries. He did say that. Yeah, he did. He did say like there's no one thing to blame, and like we talked about, like Yordan Alvarez stepping awkwardly on home plate is not the athletic trainer's fault.
Thank you.
Jeremy Pena getting hit by a pitch and breaking his left rib is not the athletic trainer's fault. Spencer Arrighetti getting his thumb broken by a batting practice fly ball is not the strength and conditioning staff's fault or Houston Methodist's fault. Like some of these were flukes. They just had some terrible luck, but it's pretty obvious that they need to look into what's going on here. And I'm not saying that means things are going to, personnel is going to change. Maybe they change some methods. Maybe they change how they do things. But, and then, I think they do need to do a pretty thorough evaluation of the offense and the lineup and just where that is. And I wrote, and this is probably something for another podcast, but I wrote a little bit about it today. And we've talked about it. Like, I'm sure that they will do a pretty thorough analysis of Troy Snicker and Alex Centrone, the two hitting coaches. I don't think I need to remind people who they are. But at the end of the day, like, what Dana has to ask himself is like, is this a personnel issue? Is this like the type of hitters we employ do they all have the same offensive profile? And do we have to make this roster over from a personnel standpoint? Or is it a messaging and a philosophy problem? If it's the latter, if it's a messaging and a philosophy problem, then I think you could see changes within that. But it's all up to, the baseball operations staff to decide, is this a personnel issue? Is this something that we've got to go get some different type of offensive profiles? Or do they think a new voice would help? I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah, we shall see. We're not going anywhere.
No.
In case you were wondering, I saw some messages of like, I hope you bring this back next season, buddy. We're going to be doing this for the next 6 months, just into the void. But there's going to be a million things to talk about. We started this thing in November, December last year, and immediately hit the ground running with like 3 emergency pods because they kept trading people and signing people. And so yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're still doing this podcast. What's the schedule look like, Chandler?
Yeah, well, we did it. I mean, I don't know if you guys kept up with the cycle. We did it 3 days a week during the season. We'll go down to 2 days a week in the off season. Obviously, that will change if and when guys get signed, traded, fired, hired. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? As news develops, we will react accordingly. But normal weeks, we'll have 2 a week, and we'll try. Again, for the next couple weeks, we'll have no shortage of things to talk about. But as things kind of gradually slow down a little bit, let us know if you guys have some people you want to hear from. Jim Crane not included, because I don't think they'll answer my request on that. If you guys have people you want to hear from or things you want us to talk about, let us know, because the games are over, so we can't really rely on that anymore. But we will continue to do everything we can to keep you guys informed. And until then, you can follow me on X at Chandler_Rome. You can follow Tyler at Tyler C. Stafford. Please, as always, rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. You can subscribe to the Crush City Territory YouTube channel, where you can get notified every time we post a new podcast. As I mentioned, the Astros will do their post-mortem press conference on Tuesday. Tyler, this is saving me a text to you. We may do something Tuesday night or Wednesday morning to kind of recap that, hear what Joe and Dana, if they both appear there, what they have to say. And so that, be on the lookout for that, maybe Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. But until then, we will talk to you guys later. And again, thank you guys so much for staying with us this whole season. It has been really, really fun. I don't know if it's been entertaining. It's been a fun new challenge for me to get on here and do this. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not the most social butterfly, and I'm not the most suave, like, social person. But it's been fun to talk into my computer for 6 months and try to act like I know what I'm talking about. And Tyler's been pretty good at it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed all of this. I'm not even. It's been so good that we've gone an hour, and I'm not even going to ask you how your college football team did this weekend. I'll spare you that for one episode. Maybe on a slower day we can discuss that. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. It's been a ton of fun. We're not going anywhere. We're going to keep chatting. So yeah, we'll see y'all soon. The Zubu is open through October 31st. So maybe we'll see you there. Bye.
Brian Kelly contributed to killing a kid. Bye.